My husband had never brought me breakfast in bed. Not once. So when he walked into our bedroom that morning with a wooden tray, 2 plates of scrambled eggs, toast, and twin glasses of strawberry smoothie, I froze for a second. He smiled like it was normal. He said he wanted to spoil me, that I deserved a little kindness, that I had been there for him always. I smiled back, but deep inside, something shifted. It wasn't just unexpected. It felt rehearsed. I reached for the smoothie. The glass was cold, the scent, strawberries and mint, familiar at first, but then I caught it, a second layer beneath the sweetness, something sharp, faint, metallic. I paused. He was watching me, too closely. I smiled again, lifted the glass meant for him, and I swapped it with mine. 7 minutes later, he began to choke. Before we continue, don't forget to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and let me know in the comments which country you're watching from. I read every single one of them. Seraphine Bellamy sat still, barely breathing, as her husband took a long sip from the glass that was never meant for him. Across the room, Ewan smiled, pretending everything was fine. But she saw it, the subtle falter in his expression, the way his hand rose instinctively to his chest, and the flicker of confusion that passed through his eyes. He blinked a few times, cleared his throat, then forced out a small laugh. "Must have sipped too fast," he said, voice rougher than usual. She nodded politely, concealing the wave of adrenaline rushing through her. Her face remained calm, composed. But inside, everything was screaming. She stood up, gently placing her toast back on the tray. "I think I'll get some air," she said. Ewan nodded and sat down on the edge of the bed. "Yeah, maybe I'll rest a bit." The cold air outside was sharp and clean. It hit her skin like truth. She stepped out onto the back patio, both hands gripping the wooden railing. Her fingers trembled. Her knees felt hollow. But more than fear, what settled in her chest was certainty. Ewan had tried to poison her. It wasn't just a theory now, not just a lingering suspicion. For weeks, maybe months, something hadn't felt right. Strange aftertastes, random dizziness. A night she woke up gasping after tea. A wine bottle that gave her searing stomach cramps. Every time he had an explanation. "You're stressed. You're working too hard. It must be hormonal." This morning changed everything. He drank the wrong glass, and within minutes he reacted. Seraphine pulled out her phone and sent a single text to the one person she could trust without question. Marigold. "Need you now. Urgent. Please come quietly." Marigold Lane, her best friend since they were 15, now a pharmacist with her own clinic in town. No explanations needed, just that text. A few seconds later, her phone buzzed with a reply. "I'm coming. Don't eat. Don't drink. Say nothing." Back inside, Ewan had composed himself. He was in the kitchen now, leaning against the counter with a glass of water, pretending everything was fine. "Feeling better?" she asked. He nodded, smiling faintly. "Yeah, just one of those mornings. Maybe I didn't sleep well." Seraphine didn't push. She just smiled back and started clearing the plates. The smoothie glass was half empty. She carefully wrapped it in a napkin and placed it in the sink, but not before noting the faint film at the bottom. She knew she had to act fast. The moment Ewan left for work, she moved quickly. She put on gloves, latex from the emergency kit under the sink. She sealed the glass, the spoon, even the bottle of vitamins he always left on the counter. Each item went into its own Ziploc bag. Then she locked them all in a cooler bag and waited. It didn't take long before there was a soft knock at the back door. Marigold stepped inside with urgency, but no panic. She hugged Seraphine once, briefly, then pulled off her coat. "What happened?" she asked. Seraphine handed her the bag. "I think Ewan's been drugging me," she whispered, "and this morning, he drank the glass he meant for me." Marigold's eyes narrowed. "You did the right thing. I'll take this to the lab, quietly. If there's anything in it, we'll know." Seraphine's voice was barely audible. "I need proof, March. I need to know what he's doing to me." Marigold didn't hesitate. "You'll have it," she said. "But Seraphine, if this is real, you're not safe in that house." "I know," Seraphine whispered, "but I'm not running. Not until I know exactly what he's capable of." Marigold returned 2 hours later. She came through the back door, same as before, without knocking. Her coat smelled faintly of antiseptic and cold wind. She placed the cooler bag on the kitchen counter and unzipped it with care, like she was handling evidence in a crime lab. "There's definitely something in the smoothie," she said quietly. Seraphine didn't speak. She couldn't. Her hands gripped the edge of the counter so tightly her knuckles turned white. "I ran a preliminary test," Marigold continued. "There's a sedative compound, something very close to clonazepam, but not over the counter. It's prescription only, and it was mixed with a cardiovascular stimulant. That combination could cause heart rhythm failure. Or worse." Seraphine's stomach twisted. She thought of the wine, the tea, and now the smoothie. Her breath came in slow, controlled pulls. "Enough to kill me?" she asked. Marigold nodded. "If you drank the whole glass, yes, easily." The silence between them stretched. It wasn't the kind of silence that screamed. It was quieter than that, heavier. Finally, Seraphine spoke. "I need to be careful. He watches me." "You can't stay here," Marigold said. "Not alone." "I'm not alone." Seraphine turned toward the hallway, just as the sound of soft footsteps echoed down the stairs. Inez Holloway, the housekeeper, entered the kitchen holding a folded towel. She paused when she saw Marigold, eyes flicking between them. Always discreet, always silent. "I didn't mean to interrupt," she said softly, with that calm, measured tone Seraphine had come to rely on. "It's all right," Seraphine said. "This is Marigold. She's a friend." Inez gave a small nod, then stepped closer to the sink. Her movements were slow, deliberate. She placed the towel on the counter, then turned to leave. But something about the way her hand lingered on the edge of the cabinet made Seraphine speak up. "Inez," she said gently, "is there something you want to say?" The older woman froze, just for a second. Then she turned back. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes were tired. "There was something strange last week," she said slowly. "I was cleaning the upstairs bathroom, and I saw Dr. Bellamy carrying a small glass bottle. It didn't have a label. He tucked it into his coat when he saw me." Marigold exchanged a look with Seraphine. Inez wasn't one to exaggerate, or speak out of turn. "And yesterday," Inez continued, voice even lower now, "he dropped a bottle cap under the kitchen counter. I found it after he left for work. I still have it. I don't know why I kept it, but something felt wrong." Seraphine's breath caught. "Can you show us?" Inez nodded and disappeared into the laundry room. A minute later, she returned with a tiny plastic cap wrapped in a tissue. Marigold took it carefully. "This could help confirm the source," she said. "If it matches the compound from the smoothie, we'll have a direct link." Seraphine met Inez's gaze. "Why didn't you say anything before?" Inez looked down. "Because I wasn't sure," she said, "and because I've been afraid for a long time. You weren't the only one he tried to control." Later that evening, after Marigold left with the evidence, Seraphine sat in her bedroom, door locked, curtains drawn. The walls felt tighter now. The whole house did. What had once been a place of quiet comfort had become a maze of shadows. She stared at the framed wedding photo on her dresser, her in ivory lace, Ewan in navy blue. It looked like love. But now she saw the cracks. The game had changed. She wasn't just trying to survive anymore. She was going to expose him. And she wasn't alone. That night, Seraphine barely slept. Every creak of the house, every shift in the wind outside, set her nerves on edge. The shadows that moved across her ceiling weren't just shadows anymore. They were questions, warnings, possibilities. She waited until morning, until Ewan left for work, until the sound of his car faded down the drive. Then she moved. She knew where he kept the keys. Inside the closet in his study, there was a locked drawer. He claimed it was just patient files, confidential papers from his private practice. She had never questioned it before. But now her hands moved with certainty. Behind the winter coats, in the pocket of his old overcoat, she found the key. Not labeled, not hidden well. He hadn't expected her to look. She unlocked the drawer and found a small black fireproof box. Heavy, sealed. She tried the same key. It worked. Inside was a stack of documents, neat, categorized. At the very top was a life insurance policy, her name, his signature, a payout value that made her stomach drop. £500,000, signed just 6 weeks ago. She sat back on the floor, the box open before her, heart pounding. Beneath the policy were other papers, financial statements, a second account under his name, transfers, quiet ones. But it wasn't until she reached the last folder that her fingers truly froze. It was an old medical file, a patient, Eliza Baird, female, 32, deceased, listed under cause of death, sudden cardiac failure. The doctor listed on the file, Dr. Ewan Bellamy. Seraphine's throat went dry. She turned the page. There was a note clipped to the back. A post-it, folded. Inside was a single sentence, handwritten, just like before. Keep it clean. Her hands shook. She didn't know who had written it, but the implications were clear. This wasn't the first time. A soft knock broke the silence. She quickly closed the box and locked the drawer again, heart racing. Inez stood in the hallway, holding a cup of tea. "I thought you might need something warm," the older woman said. Seraphine accepted it, grateful, but didn't drink. She looked at Inez carefully. "There's more," she whispered. "He's done this before." Inez didn't look surprised. Instead, she sat down at the edge of the hallway bench and folded her hands. "I always had a feeling," she said, "but I told myself it was none of my business, until now." Seraphine felt the weight of it all pressing down on her. The policy, the patient file, the cap, the smoothie. It was no longer just suspicion, no longer theory. It was structure, planned, patterned, intentional. And if Ewan had done it before, he would do it again. That afternoon, she called Marigold from the guest bedroom, speaking in a whisper. "There's a woman, Eliza Baird. She died last year. He signed her file. I found it hidden." "I'll look her up," Marigold replied. "I'll see what I can find in the hospital system." "Be careful," Seraphine said. "Don't log in from your clinic. Use home access." "I know," Marigold replied. "We're not playing checkers anymore." As the day faded, Seraphine stood at the window of her bedroom, watching the fog roll in across the fields. Ewan would be home soon. She didn't know how long she had before he realized she knew too much. But she wasn't waiting anymore. Now she had names, she had documents, she had motive, and tomorrow she'd have a plan. Seraphine spent the next morning turning her house into a quiet trap. She didn't call it that, not even in her own mind. But that was what it was. She'd purchased 2 discreet mini-cameras using a temporary debit card Marigold had helped her set up. One went behind a row of cookbooks in the kitchen. The other she hid in the frame of a decorative mirror across from the medicine cabinet in the upstairs bathroom, where Ewan always went first after coming home from work. She moved like a ghost, deliberate and soundless, erasing every trace of what she touched. By noon, everything was in place. When Ewan came home, he was smiling again. The same warm, relaxed version of himself that used to put her at ease, but not anymore. Now she watched the curve of his smile like a knife she hadn't seen coming the first time. "Dinner later?" he asked casually as he loosened his tie. "I thought we could do something easy tonight. Maybe soup and grilled cheese like we used to?" Seraphine nodded with a soft laugh. "Comfort food sounds nice." In her head, she tracked every movement. Where he put his coat, how he lingered near the kitchen island, whether his hand brushed too long against the drawer where she kept the tea bags. Every small thing could mean something, or nothing, and that uncertainty was the most exhausting part. After dinner, he offered to clean up. She let him. Then she waited 30 minutes before retrieving the footage. Later that night, in the dark of the guest room, Seraphine connected her phone to the hidden SD card and watched. The kitchen footage showed Ewan rinsing the dishes, humming softly, then turning to the corner drawer. He opened it, paused, then reached into his pocket. For a few seconds, his back blocked the view. When he moved again, he was tucking something under the sink cabinet, quickly, precisely, like he'd done it before. Her stomach turned. She forwarded the clip to Marigold along with a single message. "He's still hiding things." Just before midnight, Marigold replied, "Found Eliza Baird in the system. She died in his care. Unexplained cardiac event. Inez's bottle cap matches her toxicology report." Seraphine read the message twice, then powered off the phone. Outside, the wind picked up. The house creaked. Ewan's footsteps passed once outside her door, slow and unhurried. He thought she was asleep. He had no idea she was building the case that might end him. And she wasn't done yet. The next morning, Seraphine woke before dawn. She waited in bed, eyes open, listening to the silence as the house held its breath. Ewan was still asleep in the other room. They had stopped sharing a bed 6 months ago, under the excuse of different schedules and restless nights. Now, it felt like an invisible boundary that might keep her alive. By the time he left for work, the sun had barely touched the horizon. She stood at the upstairs window, watching his car disappear down the road before slipping into the kitchen without hesitation. She crouched beneath the sink and opened the cabinet doors. Cleaning supplies lined the bottom shelf. Disinfectant, sponges, gloves. She removed them one by one, checking behind each bottle. Nothing. But when she ran her hand along the underside of the cabinet's inner ceiling, her fingers touched a small strip of duct tape. She pulled gently. Something clicked loose. A tiny black pouch fell into her palm. She opened it on the counter, heart thudding. Inside were 2 glass vials, both unlabeled. One filled with a pale yellow liquid, the other nearly clear. There was also a folded sheet of paper with numbers, dosages, and notes in Ewan's handwriting. Coded, but unmistakable. At the bottom of the sheet was a single line. Test on small scale first. Response within 6 to 10 minutes. She stood frozen, staring at the vials. Her mind raced through what could have happened if she hadn't switched glasses. 7 minutes. That was all it took. She didn't call Marigold yet. Not yet. She needed more, something undeniable. That evening, she acted normal. She smiled. She laughed lightly when Ewan made a joke about work. He poured her a glass of wine. She took it, held it, let it warm in her hand, and when he wasn't looking, she poured it into the kitchen drain, drop by drop, behind a rolled dish towel. His eyes lingered on her longer that night, just a beat too long, just enough for her to notice. She pretended not to. She let him talk about his patients, about how he might take on fewer clients soon. "Things have been a bit much lately," he said. "Maybe it's time to slow down." His voice was calm, his face open. But something behind his eyes was different now. Like he knew a balance had shifted. Like he wasn't sure what she knew. But he knew it was something. That night, Seraphine placed the 2 vials inside an envelope, sealed it, and wrote, "To be opened only if anything happens to me," across the front. She hid it beneath the floorboard under her closet. Then she lay awake in the dark, waiting for the next move. 2 days passed. Seraphine kept her routine precise. She made the bed, tidied the kitchen, answered Ewan's questions with practiced ease. He kept smiling, kept pretending, but his movements were changing, quieter, more measured. He watched her more closely now. When she left a room, she felt his eyes follow her, even when he wasn't looking. She didn't confront him. She played along. But she moved with a purpose. Each evening, after he fell asleep in the other room, she reviewed the camera footage from that day. Kitchen and bathroom, dozens of small, unremarkable clips. He brewed coffee, he checked his phone, he folded a dish towel. But on the 3rd night, at exactly 7:12 p.m., the footage changed. Ewan entered the kitchen with a mug in hand. He opened the drawer, reached behind the silverware tray, and pulled out a tiny vial. Same color as the one she had found under the sink. He held it under the light, swirled it, and poured a few drops into a cup that was just out of frame. Then he turned. And for the briefest moment, half a second, he looked directly at the camera. Not because he saw it, but because his angle aligned perfectly with the lens. His face was calm, eyes narrowed in quiet concentration. Then, he placed the mug back on the tray, wiped the counter twice, and walked out of frame. Seraphine paused the clip, rewound it, watched it again. The mug was green. "Heron." She checked the date. It was yesterday. She hadn't touched that mug. She hadn't even had tea that night. She had used a bottle of mineral water instead. Just a habit. Just luck. Or maybe instinct. She sent the clip to Marigold with a short message. "We have him." 10 minutes later, Marigold replied, "Clear intent. Deliberate delivery. We're taking this to the detective." At noon, the next day, Detective Orion Maddox arrived in plain clothes. Seraphine met him outside the garden gate with a shopping bag in hand, like she was running errands. Inside the bag was a flash drive, 2 photos, and the handwritten note with dosages. No explanations, just evidence. Maddox didn't ask her to speak much. He simply said, "We'll handle it from here. Don't change your routine. Don't let him know we've seen this. When the moment comes, we'll be ready." Seraphine nodded. Her heart pounded, but her face didn't show it. That evening, she poured herself a glass of water, sat down across from Ewan, and asked about his day. He smiled and said it was quiet, uneventful. She smiled back. She almost believed him. By the end of the week, the plan was in motion. The police had everything they needed: motive, method, physical evidence, and now recorded intent. All they needed was one more act, one more moment to make it irrefutable in the eyes of the law. Seraphine was exhausted, the kind of tired that seeps into the bones when you've been pretending to smile for too long. But she held her ground. She woke up at the usual time, made the same breakfast, complimented Ewan on his tie, and waved to him from the porch like nothing had changed. She kept the mirror camera charged, the kitchen lens focused, and her phone within reach at all times. Saturday morning came quiet and cold. Frost lined the window panes. She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and came down to find Ewan already in the kitchen. He looked up and smiled. Thought I'd surprise you. On the table, a tray, toast, orange slices, 2 mugs of herbal tea, and a glass of what looked like peach smoothie. Seraphine's breath caught, but she didn't show it. She stepped forward slowly, scanning the table. I thought we ran out of peaches, she said casually. I had some frozen in the back, Ewan replied. Wanted to make you something nice. You've been incredible lately. Her hands itched to reach for her phone. But she didn't. She simply picked up the smoothie glass and brought it to her nose. The scent was sweet, but she knew it now, that faint chemical edge hidden behind fruit and honey. She looked at him, smiled. This is lovely. She sat down and waited, gave him time to pick up the other glass. He lifted it but didn't drink immediately. Go on, she said gently. Let's toast. To us. He hesitated. Only a second. But in that second, Seraphine saw it. A flicker of doubt in his eyes. The calculation. The pause that gave everything away. Then he drank. Not the whole glass. Just a sip. Seraphine reached beneath the table and pressed the silent alert button Detective Maddox had given her. 12 minutes. She needed to keep him talking for 12 minutes. Do you remember our first vacation? She asked, sipping her tea, watching him closely. That little cabin in Dorset? He smiled. Of course. You burned the eggs. No, I dropped the eggs, she corrected, laughing lightly. You burned the toast. His hand moved toward his stomach. She noticed the sheen of sweat forming just beneath his hairline, the stiffening in his shoulders. Is everything all right? She asked, feigning concern. Maybe I ate too fast, he said, standing slowly. I'm gonna lie down for a bit. She stood too. No, she said softly. I think you should stay. He turned to face her fully now. His expression was different, guarded, accusing. What's going on, Seraphine? She didn't answer, because that was the moment the front door burst open. 2 officers stepped inside, followed by Detective Maddox. Ewan Bellamy, Maddox said calmly. You're under arrest for attempted murder. Ewan blinked. Once. Twice. Then laughed. Just a single, short breath. What the hell is this? We have video, audio, and physical evidence, Maddox said. We also have you on camera preparing and delivering a poisoned drink to your wife. This time you drank it yourself. Ewan looked at Seraphine, and for the first time, the mask cracked completely. No smile, no softness, just fury, pure and unfiltered. You planned this, he said. She didn't flinch. No, she replied. You did. I just made sure someone was watching this time. Ewan Bellamy didn't say a word during the ride to the station. According to Detective Maddox, he kept his hands in his lap and stared out the window the entire time. No panic, no outrage, just silence. Calculating, cold silence. Seraphine watched the car pull away from the upstairs window, her fingers curled tightly around the curtain. She didn't cry. There was nothing left to cry over. Only a hollow ache where certainty used to live. Over the next week, the investigation moved quickly. With the collected evidence, videos, vials, dosage notes, and Inez's statement, Ewan was charged with attempted murder, possession of controlled substances, and fraud related to the life insurance policy. Maddox called her every other day, keeping her updated. His tone was calm, professional, but beneath it she sensed a quiet respect. She had survived something that most wouldn't see until it was too late. At the preliminary hearing, Seraphine sat on the far left bench, dressed in a dark coat and gloves. She didn't look at Ewan, but she could feel his gaze, sharp and steady like always. He pleaded not guilty. His defense attorney claimed she was paranoid, mentally unstable, possibly manipulated by her friend Marigold. They called her a woman who misinterpreted her husband's care as control. Seraphine said nothing. She let the evidence speak. The prosecution presented the recordings, the toxicology reports, the capped vial Inez had saved, and finally the footage, Ewan pouring the chemical into her smoothie. The room fell silent during playback. Even the judge leaned forward. Seraphine didn't move. She sat through every word, every argument, and every denial. But when it was her turn to testify, she stood with her back straight and her voice steady. She told them the truth. About the symptoms, the fear, the moments she doubted herself, and how she chose to trust her instinct, even when everything told her she was overreacting. When she stepped down from the witness stand, she felt lighter. Not because it was over, but because she had finally spoken without fear. After a 3-day trial, the verdict was read in the same courtroom where they once filed their marriage license. Guilty on all counts. Ewan showed no emotion when the sentence was announced. 23 years in prison. Eligible for parole in 15. But as the guards led him out of the courtroom, he looked back just once. And Seraphine met his eyes without flinching. There was nothing left to say. I still wake up early. Even now, in this new apartment with different walls and different light, my eyes open before the sun rises, like my body still expects danger. I don't reach for a glass of water right away. I wait, I listen. Old habits don't leave easily, but I'm still here, and that matters more than anything. People ask me if I ever suspected him in the beginning, if I saw signs, if there were warnings. The truth is, yes, I did. But they were quiet signs, small things, a hesitation, a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, a compliment that felt more like an echo than a truth. What I've learned is that abuse doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers through gestures. It hides behind breakfast trays and smiles and phrases like, "I'm doing this for you." And sometimes it comes in the form of a glass of strawberry smoothie. But I chose to trust my instinct. And that saved my life. The trial ended 3 months ago. The house has been sold. Inez now lives with her daughter up north. She sends me postcards, handwritten, always in blue ink. Marigold stops by every Sunday with fresh coffee, and that soft, knowing smile of hers. And me? I'm learning how to breathe again, how to let silence be safe, not suspicious, how to trust the hands that make me tea, and how to love my own company after years of shrinking into someone else's shadow. Some nights I dream of the day they took him away. I wake up sweating, heart racing. But it passes, because I remind myself that it's over. He lost. And I didn't just survive. I won. Not because he's in prison, but because I'm free.